for hosting, and all of our FARs who have really committed and dedicated themselves in putting this together. Serving on as chair of Management Council truly has opened up doors and opportunities for us to do things bigger and better than we do on the normal day-to-day. Mental illness and health has been one strong piece of data that we received related to our student athletes. So this symposium, I think, is extremely important in the given time of where we are.
We have a tendency to celebrate mental toughness. So athletes are considered strong, stable, consistent performers, resilient, confident, they're persistent, they push through. They are comfortable with discomfort. They tolerate pain and discomfort, and that's the expectation. And they're also used to performing under pressure.
I thought Mrs. Coakley did a fine job in her presentation. You could tell that this is something that she's passionate about. This is something that you could tell that she's dealt with for a long time.
She was very relatable. A lot of things she talked about as far as the issues that student athletes have to go through, I felt like some of those issues I dealt with on the daily.
It all begins with education. It all begins with telling the stories and for our student athletes to begin to find their voice, to begin to share the needs around mental health.
As African American athletes, we use negative things to cope with some of our mental health issues, and I feel like a lot of the things that she gave that were positive will really help some of my teammates and regular students as well.
I think that it is invaluable that these counselors are available, and they're available 24 hours a day.
How much emphasis is placed on student-athlete well-being compared to wins and losses?
Because we have to be proactive and stop being reactive. I've had too many instances when there are red flags with students. When you've got student athletes who've been to 5 and 6 schools, and they started out at D1 schools, suddenly they're at a D2 school, and they show up at my office, and they're saying that they're hearing voices, and they're telling me that they told the recruiting coach.
Student athletes usually open up when they're away from the coaches, and they share information with those two particular people more than they will with coaches sometimes. Sometimes they question the agenda or just what the coaches are all about and what they're trying to accomplish, but they feel more comfortable with the strength and conditioning coach as well as the athletic trainer. So we really utilize their input in identifying potential concerns and issues.
Within the system, we have to have a buy-in from the parent.
As a student athlete, I feel that mental illness and wellness is very important into being successful. It's important that we know what it is and how it can be diagnosed and how we can help it and correct it.
And then it's up to us as administrators and coaches to be able to buy into and to understand fully the need of our student athletes, but to also provide them with the support that's going to essentially help them to be successful students.
As the student athletes come in at the beginning of the semester, I think this is something that is key that you have in your first meetings with teams. Letting the team know that certain behaviors, certain attitudes go a long way in determining not just wins and losses, but the wins and losses in life.
I'm a clinical psychologist. As I said, this is my 20th year working with athletes. Stuff like stress management, motivation, belief in self, emotional regulation, confidence, right? These are all things, mental factors that impact performance.
If there were someone on campus available who is sports specific for mental health, that you all would be very, very willing to go and meet with them, establish a relationship with them. I guess my question is, with some of our universities, we are a little budget challenged and can't afford someone dedicated to athletics for that purpose. But if we had a referral program, would you have the same interest and willingness to go off campus?
If there was transportation provided and people were willing to help out, you guys had someone for us to go to, I think that would be a step in the right direction for sure.
Student athletes, as well as all students and those who serve them, need to know how to best help them in times of crisis.
Historically, mental health is something that in the black community is sort of a taboo subject. We don't like to talk about. But I think with this type of forum, it brings it into the forefront. It's something that we need to talk about. It's something that should be brought to the forefront.
It's good to hear people actually speaking up about these problems and issues that are so prevalent in student athletes.
Alright, so when I talk about goals around mental health, again, I see mental health as everyone's responsibility. And I think that there are three primary goals: increasing awareness, helping to decrease the stigma, and promoting early intervention. What are some of the factors that stop us from noticing those things? At this point, everybody can say, yes, we know that there's an issue, we know that we need to have more conversations about mental health, we know that we need to make sure that folks have more resources. What are the things that you think stop people from doing the work that we know we need to do? Particularly all the folks of color, particularly athletes. I grew up in a house where my mom was like, whatever happens in this house stays in this house, right? Let me find out. Right? And I've got family members now who are like, you're a what? A psychologist? A what? Black people go to therapy? A lot of us people go to somebody's couch. Right? Because we know that African American populations are the least likely to use mental health services. I am at a Brown Blue Right institution, and I worked at a number of them, and I went to a number of them, being the only one in the room, right? So you are representing your race. And we know that on those campuses, those students struggle with that, right? So being the only one, we've got the fear, we've got religion, we've got stigma, we've got lack of knowledge, we've got loyalty. What else? Financial stability, right? So if you're not on, how many teams actually get full scholarships? So you're talking Division II, you're talking about little pieces of money, right? And we know that you're still, even in Division II, you're still giving 30 hours a week to your sport. So how are you supposed to? Where does that money come from? So these are all things that we know just as student athlete has to navigate in ways that regular students don't have to navigate, right? Because you are here to play sports. You are not here to be a student, and you're not prepared to be a student. You don't really even want to be a student, right? So stereotype threat. You guys have heard the term stereotype threat, right? So that concern of fulfilling the negative stereotypes about yourself. So that could be as a student of color, or that could also be as a student athlete. And then when you put them together, sometimes that's a hot mess. I think there are four primary factors, right? Culture, and so that's the athletic culture, and that's the student of color culture. Stigma, because I think the culture is what creates the stigma, or what contributes to the stigma. The lack of knowledge, the lack of education, because we don't necessarily always know what something wrong looks like. And then limited access to resources and support, right? So those four things are the things that I think that we are constantly battling against, right? Because everyone in my world has interacted with me based on this thing that I do. So all of my self-worth is tied into who I am out there. And so without that, who am I? That's serious. And so you have all these, a lot of former players. I mean, they will identify themselves as former NFL players their entire lives. And I think you see it more, you certainly see it with professional athletes, but you certainly see it with college athletes. There's no question about it. And so I talk to students all the time about, if you're going to leave your sport, let's think about what you're going to do. What other aspects of your identity can you develop? Studies suggest that you guys are the most connected, but also the most isolated. Help them to develop other aspects of their identity, because the coaches aren't doing that. And not to fault the coaches, right? Because coaches want to win. And so as a coach, you want someone who has a very, very highly developed athletic identity. But then what happens outside of that? And so this is where I say we all have that responsibility. Everybody can take some part in that.
This symposium was absolutely phenomenal. It's very good to see that our conference is taking the lead on bringing recognition to the problems that exist with mental health.
Great representation here among student athletes, faculty, and staff.
This was a great and powerful and enlightening experience, and hopefully the student athletes can bring something back to their campus to increase the awareness of mental health.
We've been planning this event for some time now. I must say that I'm very, very pleased. We had an excellent group of presenters, speakers, panel members. We had great student athletes from the conference to represent and speak on the topics of mental health.
I think this is something that is eye-opening to us in the HBCU community.
People advocating for a culture shift or change, I think is definitely a start in the right direction.
I think it can save a lot of our young men and women in athletics or really just out of athletics, save their lives, put them on a different path to success, a different path to happiness and healthfulness.
To get that support, or at least to see it starting, I think is really important.
My biggest challenge is making sure that we can all take this information back and do something with it. We had good feedback from student athletes, we had good feedback from the other participants who were administrators, counselors, and other people who work in the sports arena.
We couldn't be more proud of our student athletes and the student athletes of the CIAA who were open and honest and very candid about their experiences at our institutions, very open about the needs that exist on each of our institutions. And I will say, as the Director of Athletics at Winston, it's up to us now that we are more familiar with not only the symptoms and the support that's necessary. Now, what are the next steps that we take to make sure that we can bring that type of support back to our campuses?